So, I knew we were going to be coming up against a number of undead. I remembered a build a long time ago. God, it's been years and years and years of a channeling-focused cleric. I was talking about how clerics have the ability to channel against undead and heal their allies, one or the other, inverse, yada yada. Also being a full caster. It is based on charisma as opposed to wisdom. So my thought was, we know there's going to be a lot of undead. A channeling-focused cleric could be fun. Admittedly, I've played channeling-focused clerics in the past, different varieties of channeling-focused clerics, but they have not been particularly powerful, to say the least. However, again, you don't need to be particularly powerful as long as everybody is under the same understanding. So channeling-focused cleric, a little bit more focused in terms of their charisma score, a little bit less focused in terms of their wisdom score. Still capable of fully casting all their spells, don't get me wrong. The problem with that is charisma is the headband slot used to get your stat boosting items for both charisma and wisdom is the same slot required to make your channels better. So, you can always ask your GM, hey, is it possible for me to reslot this phylactery of positive channeling? Or reslot this headband? Maybe move into a belt slot, maybe move to a different slot. If they say no, channeling focused clerics, not the greatest. However, they can be enjoyable. So, in this instance, I might allow it. I'm the GM. When I've been asked this before, specifically in regards to a channeling cleric, I will generally allow it. If they're just asking to try and get any magic item reslotted, I'll generally say no. But if you come to me with a build that you would like to see implemented, and it needs a little bit of help, oftentimes, as an experienced player, I'm capable of doing this. A little bit of gaming there. I know in the future that I'll need. I'll keep that in mind. So, the cleric. Let's go ahead and take a look at cleric. We've got aura, channel energy, domains, and horizons. Horizons are basically your cantrips. These are your 0th level spells. You can cast them as many times as you want. Not all that complicated. Channel energy, we talked about. Aura is a class feature that you just shine as your god intends. Whatever your alignment, the alignment of your god is, you show that aura. And of course, your channel energy, every odd level, it goes up. Your spells are based on wisdom. So 10 plus spell level, plus your wisdom score. You must have at least 10 plus a spell level to cast. So, for example, assuming you have an 18 as your attribute, you will have a +4 to your intelligence score. So your first level spells will be 10, which is the base, plus your first level spell, +4 for your score, for a total of 15 for your DCs. The sheet we're going to be using is going to be calculating all that on Roll20, but for doing it in pen and paper, it's a fairly simple calculation. 10 plus your casting stat should be a number you just automatically know as a spellcaster, plus a spell level. Nice and easy. Channel energy, on the other hand, has a save DC of 10 plus half cleric level plus charisma modifier. Which, again, pretty simple. 10 plus charisma modifier should be a number you just know offhand, plus half your level. This doesn't say minimum 1. A lot of times they will say minimum 1. This one does not. You can use the number tie equal to 3 plus your charisma modifier. So, this means that if we want to do channeling as on the regular, we need a high charisma to make it difficult, and we need a high charisma to use them many times per day, if we're going to be both harming the bad guys and healing our allies. Okay, that makes sense. Horizons, again, just 0th level spell. I don't know why these are considered their own special category. They just are. Spontaneous casting. Most importantly, if you are a good cleric or a neutral cleric of a good deity, or if you are a neutral cleric of a neutral deity and choose to worship good, you may choose to trade any of your currently prepared spells, so any of the spells you've selected for the day, in exchange for a healing spell of the same level. That's why the clerics are considered healers, because they always, unless they're out of spells, have healing on tap, assuming they're a good line. Evil clerics instead turn them to inflict spells, which again, negative energy heals undead. You do have to be wary. Good, chaos, law, evil. Your cleric's alignment could cause issues, so keep that in mind. But that is basically the full list. Capstones we probably don't worry about. Next up, favorite class. Let's go ahead and talk about favorite class real quick. When you first start creating a character, you get a favorite class. Favorite class could be any base class in the game. Usually one that you're going to be taking. Every time you take a level in your favorite class, you may take either one hit point, one skill point that can be spent on any skill, up to your max of skill point level, up to your normal maximum, or whatever is here based on your race. So, for example, a human cleric could spend their favorite class bonus and a +1 to cast level checks made to overcome the spell resistance of outsiders. Now you're going to be encountering outsiders a lot. That could be quite good. Ifrits, +1.5 bonus knowledge plane checks relating to the plate of fire and crystals of the fire subtype. That is way more situational, and you'll probably want the bonus hit point. The rule of thumb is always take the hit point unless there's a very, very, very specific reason not to. Hit points are incredibly good. Skill points are situationally good. These things are very niche in terms of their viability. So, next, we go back to the document. Was there anything cleric related that they said was particularly good? I don't think so. Let's go ahead and search a good old cleric. 14 pages. Getting a bit of lag. Hold on. There was not a single thing related to clerics that we may want to do, barring, of course, religion. We can look at the various gods that they had to choose from. Nethys could be fun. He's a god of magic, god of that sort of thing. However, I think the gods of ancient Assyria called me quite a bit more. Gods of ancient Assyria, I'm not overly familiar with. If we go to deities, deities by pantheon, and we go to deities of ancient Assyria, Osiris, Wajet, Bes. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to call it Izzy going forward. Izzy will be that one's name, just because I don't want to say the no-no and get banned for any reason. Khepri, Neith, Hathor, Selket, Anubis, Horus, Mot, so on. Oh god, there's a lot of them. Okay. But those are the deities of ancient Egypt. They've been translated not quite one-to-one, but loosely one-to-one in terms of this. There's also ancient Tianza. There's a bunch of other ancient religions that are some dead, some less so. But since these gods still worship, I found a deity and thing that I wanted to do. So, we know we're fighting undead. There is a domain. I after a little bit of research, I remembered. Oh, that Pathfinder Sun domain. Again, D20 PFs would be perfectly acceptable. However, it is not officially sourced, so they cannot use some of the first-party names. So the naming convention may be a little bit off here and there. But looking at Ra, the god of rulership, I was thinking, okay, maybe we have someone worshiping the god, the like crown god of the ancient pantheon, maybe have some relation to the pharaoh, kind of combining those first two campaign traits, where your family worships an ancient god, you're looking to continue worship. You have bloodline of the ancient pharaoh, you're looking to maybe find truth of that, maybe you're looking to become the pharaoh, fighting against the power and whatnot. Regardless, you worship the deities and they grant you power, but you believe yourself to be important in some way. Maybe a little full of yourself, maybe not. I haven't fully fleshed out that part of the backstory. But the first part of Sun's Blessing is whenever you channel positive energy to harm undead, add your cleric level to the damage roll. Undead do not add their channel resistance to saves when you channel positive energy. Most undead have bonuses to channel resistance, because their will save is usually quite low. Some of them are mindless, some of them don't get good saves to that, but this just makes you much stronger in terms of your channel damage. Also, there is, if we go back to Ra, Saren Ray also can do this, but Ra is similar. If we go to, what is it, Glory? Yes, Glory. You're infused with the glory of the divine. You're a true foe of undead. In addition, when you channel positive energy to harm undead creature, the DC have the damage increases by 2. Again, Saren Ray is another option to do this. This is where I originally heard it. But I don't want to play a Cleric of Saren Ray, because that's been done before. So I'm going to do a very similar sort of thing, but just changing the deity. Same domains. Same, I don't know necessarily, it's lawful good, or neutral good versus lawful neutral. is a very different kind of character when they play very similarly. Which I think is cool. I think it's really cool. These guys have a much less, they're much less offended by, I'm guessing they are. We go to the old Pathfinder wiki, Pathfinder Ra. And we go to, first off, Archives of Nethys. What does it have? Oh, so open this in a new tab. The reason, of course, we're using incognito is I don't want you guys to see my personal information. We're going to reject the optional. Rulers of ancient Assyria, represents the sun, fair, just, honorable rulership, credit with be the creator, falcon-headed, large barge, father of various deities, creator of many others, Thoth, son-in-law, serves as counselor, was yet supports him as a patron. King of Serpents seeks to consume the sun, is Ra's arch enemy. Fights with every night to protect the sun. He is often aided in the battle by various deities. Where sunrise is seen as evidence of Apep's defeat, having a temporary one until the sides. Worshipped by pharaohs and paladins fighting against darkness, as well as by commoners. Obelisks representing petrified sunlight are always found within his temples, open to the sky where service is held in the daylight. So, we are going to go ahead and take a look over all this. We can see the various options here. Domains are your basic options. Subdomains usually trade out some of the spells and some of the features of the main domains. So if there was an option, we could maybe go, instead of glory, we could go heroism. Instead of sun, we could go light. And so on and so forth. His favorite weapon is a spear. So odds are we're going to equip our cleric with some sort of spear. Maybe that might not be his primary weapon, but he should have a spear. Solar disc being a symbol, sacred animal. Falcon, so if you're looking for a familiar, maybe an animal companion, these can be very important. And then we can go look over here. Edicts bring order to chaos, kill evil monsters, support just laws, provide warmth if needed. Antithema, these are generally from Pathfinder 2E. Avoid personal change, kill a living thing with cold, and seal building from sunlight. Huh. Seems odd. Like the pyramids and most ancient tombs were shielded from sunlight, aren't they? Okay, either way, we're gonna we'll keep it in mind. So what we do know is we don't like using cold damage and we dislike personal change. Because if we're a bit stubborn, we're likely a bit stubborn. We're likely, though a decent person, we're law-abiding citizens and more likely we dislike evil, monsters. People, of course, we can get along with if need be. In first edition, they're allowed to be evil if need be. But monsters, there's no reason to have them around unless they are tamed or controllable in some way. We dislike chaos. Okay. So that's kind of the idea. One further thing I will note is if we go back up to classes and we go to Cleric, there are a number of, especially with core classes, there are a huge amount of archetypes. Without getting into all the specifics, a lot of them focus on worshipping specific deities, going into specific prestige classes, or doing specific things. Like Undead Lord, you summon undead, and you do that sort of thing. Some of these other various options, I mean, it's all sorts of stuff. One thing to be worth considering, that I know from a different character, not the same one who did this sort of thing, but a more channeling focus with some spell casting, Blossoming Light. There are some clerics who take their pursuit of purity and light to the extremes. Clerics are known as Blossoming Light, forsake armor and weaponry in favor of opening their hearts to the pure goodness. We are peace-loving, even pacifists. Nearly every Blossoming Light favors redemption over righteous wrath. Primarily found among the Lantern. What? Okay, we're gonna ignore that. Lantern Bearers are... The Drow are so popular back in 3.5 that they didn't want to make them an overly important thing in 3.5 or in Pathfinder. So the Drow are like the secret red-headed stepchild that nobody ever talks about among the elves, and if you know, You either forget, are told to forget, or you get dead by the light bearers. And if you are a drought, don't come above ground or you're going to get stabbed. Or the lantern bearers. Sarah Knights also have a strong tradition of being in as part of the Blossoming Lights. You must be good aligned and worship a non-evil deity. If you commit an evil act, of course, you must atone and lose all spellcasting. That is a harsh atonement as opposed to a normal one. Excuse me. Blossoming Light forsakes her deity's deeper mystery for benevolence and healing. She'll select domains and retain access to domain powers, but does not gain access to domain spell slots. Speaking of goodness, guiding others to follow their best nature. You're at half your diplomacy levels and checks against good creature to convince an evil creature to take action against its evil nature. A Blossoming Light's channel energy is usable at 5 plus charisma modifier times, and at second level and every 2 levels thereafter, you gain an additional use of channel energy. So you are channeling way, way more than the average character is. Which, if you're planning to be a channeler, this can be quite good. Downside, of course, is you are not proficient with any armor or shields, and can only use simple weapons, except for your deity's favorite weapon. So you gotta be careful, because you shouldn't be running to the front line, but you have to be within 30 feet if you want to use channel energy. It's a not great thing. To get more channels, third level, whenever you channel energy to harm undead, it also harms chaotic evil outsiders, worshippers of chaotic evil deities, and creatures with light sensitivity or light blindness as though they were undead. Again, we're going underground in tombs. Those are likely to come up a fair amount. Maybe less so with chaotic evil deities, but that should come up a decent amount. And at 7th level, when you channel energy, you can expend additional use to fill the area with bright light as per daylight. Number of rounds equal to your cleric level, so if you want to dispel darkness in any way, that can be quite good. At 10th level, Blossoming Light can use atonement once per day as a spell light to redeem others only. It doesn't require a material component or spell component or focus. Basically, you can redeem others if people are willing. Cool. Fun. So, I was thinking, following kind of the Pharaoh idea, I decided Raw, saw he'd had Sun Domain, thought about channeling clerics, thought about this Blossoming Light cleric, which I knew was a channeling-focused cleric, looked down into the specifics. Losing armor and weapons, not great. Could be worse, but it's not the end of the world. And that does not include magical gear. So if someone casts mage armor on you, that's still fine. If someone gives you like braces of armor, that's still fine. Some people may be opposed to it, but in my mind, that is a form of magic. And magic is also, in some people's minds, granted by the gods. So, it's up to you. At the very least, you do not wear armor or use a shield, so it doesn't break that specifically. So using a spear, maybe a crossbow as well, based on how we want to distribute the stats. So, let's go ahead and go back to Roll20. We're going to open up this page. We're the GM right now. You'll see a little bit different as a player, but nowadays, players, if you allow them, can create characters. We're going to create a folder, and we're going to call this PCs. This does not mean personal computers. It means player characters. I generally like to fit all the player characters under that. So we click plus. We have polkidude is the only one, or you can do all players. For the player characters, I like to say in Player's Journal, all players. That means everybody can see them, look up to the side a little bit, see their name, see their face, see their appearance. They can click them, look at the a big blow up of their picture. But then control and edited by, you only put the people you want to be able to do and fiddle with the character sheet. Usually that is only the character. This will also change how the tokens work with dynamic lighting. So if you have someone helping someone else build their character up, when you're actually playing the session, it's probably worth it to, after a little while, remove their control just to get dynamic lighting going. Leave all the tags. You can upload pictures here once you have them. The name is less important right now. We're going to save there. We then immediately go to character. Here's a bunch of options. Most of them, not that important. Some of the ones I will point out. Uses spells. If you use spells, click that. It'll open up a new tab. There's a bunch of other options here we don't care about, don't care about, don't care about. Moving all the way down. NPC, Whisper GM, PC, public roles. If you as a GM decide to build up any of your NPCs or put various villains or other NPCs in the game, I recommend going over here and putting PC Whisper GM, because that will allow you to not set them as an NPC, but still have the sheet look normal, hide the roles and whatnot. Next up, down here, there is one specific sub option I like doing. It is where are we going? Where are we going? Display enable unchained skills. What unchained skills are, it's a specific subsection of rules. Unchained has a bunch of other stuff. You've seen that before. It divides the skill list into 2 settings. Once you're done with that, you come up here and click settings. It divides the skills into background and adventure. All the unchained skills does is gives you 2 extra skills per level, no matter what your class, no matter what your race, 2 extra skills that can never be taken away, that must be spent on this selection of background skills. Because normally fighters get 2+ int skill points per level. So if they have an intelligence penalty, that's 1 skill point per level. They can do nothing with those skills. There's no flavor to be had if they want any usability in combat or outside in adventuring. You saw if they want to be able to climb, they can climb, but they can't have any backstory. So enabling background skills allows you to put 2 skills in backgrounds. Adventure skill points, which is your normal skill points from your class plus your intelligence modifier, can be spent on adventure or background. So you get 2 extra skill points you have to spend on these specific skills, and the rest of them are as normal. It allows you to take perform skills, profession skills, crafting skills, and kind of the less useful overall skills that you wouldn't normally take, and be good at them. For example, linguistics. If you're a fighter, you're never going to take linguistics unless you have a very, a prestige class requirement to. But now you have the opportunity if you want to, you can. Or if you want to be a noble fighter. That makes sense. Knowledge, nobility. Very good. I think it is worthwhile in all instances. If you want to keep it simpler, you can avoid that. But all it does is give you more skills. And more skills, in my mind, is more fun. To a point. To a point. It helps out the people who really suffer, and the people that are already just doing well are good. So, we go to core. Race, we haven't decided yet. As for alignment, we'll go lawful neutral. Gender, male, female, doesn't really matter. In Pathfinder, there is no male/female bias. There may have been a slight bit in earlier writings, but as time has gone on, Paizo as a company has gotten a lot better in terms of their... What was I going to say? Equality in terms of male-female. Something else to consider, within the specific writing of Pathfinder, there is no romantic bias one way or the other. All characters, unless stated otherwise, are assumed to be attracted to all genders and many different forms because of the variety of the various natures of creatures within a fantasy setting. So, male, female, you can still seduce the whatever regardless. You can still flirt, you can still be, of course, turned down regardless. But gender is not as important in terms of mechanical benefit. In fact, there is no mechanical benefit beyond... Nope, can't think of a single one. Now, if you're going to have kids, I guess, there might be some... I don't know if they're baked in, but if you're planning to have kids, your campaign, which is not usually covered for the duration, but all of it is pure roleplay and as it should be. So, male, female, haven't decided. Haven't got this person fully fleshed out, but I like lawful neutral. As for race, we need charisma, we need wisdom. Off the top of my head, as an experienced player, human, half elf, half orc, those all get any +2 to any stat. Aasimar is generally kind of a go-to. They get plus wisdom, plus charisma. But those are off the top of my head options. Next up, we're gonna go down here. We're gonna go cleric. We're going to go level 1. 8 hit die. We are going to actually go ahead and go over to cleric. Just kind of pull this information down from this table. So, class HP. The way we do class HP, you can roll. Every level you get a D8. That's not great because some people will be screwed and some people will be rewarded. However, max at first level, so 8 at first level, because you don't want people just straight up killing over, plus 1, or plus half plus 1 for every. So a d8 adds 5 for every level after that. A d10 will add 6, a d6 will add 4. It makes for a balanced, and the game is balanced around this sort of HP pool. So keep that in mind. Favorite class bonus, we're probably going to do hit points. I may change this later. Bab will be 0, or in this case, if you look, they're 3/4 Bab, because at 3rd level, or at 4th level, they have 3. That's kind of how you determine. Or 8th level, they get their second attack. So you could do 0.75, you could do 0.5. I think for now, I'm just going to leave it blank. We'll continue as we are. Now, saves. There are 2 progressions. You either have good progression, or you have no progression, or normal progression. I guess bad progression. Good, bad, however you want to describe it. These guys get Goodwill, Good Fort. That is a very, very nice selection of skills. A quick summary of the different saves. Fort save. That is going to be your hardiness against the environment and hardiness against things trying to poison or affect your body. Poisons, shape-changing, the environment, that sort of thing. Reflex saves are your ability to dodge and dip out of the way. These are against traps, a lot of times, unless the traps are attacking you. They're jumping out of the way of a pitfall trap, jumping out of the way of a fireball that's coming your way, grabbing onto something as it goes past, stuff like that. Will saves. This is anything trying to affect your mind, with the occasional exception. Like, for example, negative energy, use your mind to try and overcome it, stuff like that. The severity of importance. Will saves are generally save or something drastically bad happens. Lose agency of your character. That is the absolute worst case scenario. Because if you have to attack your allies, you have to run away from combat, those are dire. Now, fort saves. Those are generally the next most important. Poisons and stuff you can come back from, though they can be relatively debilitating. Environmental conditions, again, can be problematic. But also changing your form, turning you to stone, turning you to different creatures that don't do much. Again, debilitating. But fort saves are not the end of the world if you fail. Reflex saves, those are generally save or take damage. There are exceptions to that, but hit point damage is a problem that is easily overcome. So reflex saves I would consider the lowest priority in terms of my saving throws. Now, of course, there are exceptions. Some people just can't ever get a spectacular will save, or can't ever get a spectacular fort save. If you're dex-based, you'll generally just have a good reflex save as a point of it happens. But if you have the option to choose, usually go will save, fort save, reflex save. However, based on your stats, your con, dex, and wisdom, that will also change your save. So boosting up your low save, increasing your high save, those are all also especially good. But good fort will, almost as good as you could ask for, barring having all 3, which only base monks get all 3. Now, skill points per level, if we go ahead and look, we get 2 plus int, which is not a whole lot. So that is something to keep in mind. At this point, we have to do skill, or ability scores. Ability scores is going to be very dependent on race. I'm actually going to go ahead and go to the PFSRD on this part, because they organize their races a lot more to my liking. We've got core, we have got standard, but most importantly, they have these tables. So, ability score plus, these are generally a +2, unless they state otherwise. Ability score minus, these are whatever you're taking a -2 on. Some of them have none, and some of them have any. When it says any, this is a +2 to any score, humans being a very good choice. Size, medium. Medium is considered the default. When you are small, you get bonuses to your AC and hit-to-hits, and take penalties in other areas, usually in terms of movement speed and a couple other factors. Starting languages, you speak languages. Senses, some people get dark vision, and then various different traits. Some gets bonuses, skills, race points. As a general rule of thumb, a race that has around 10 race points is relatively balanced. 15 is kind of the upper end. ASMRs are generally considered a playable race. But some of these getting down further, like 24, can get, or 17, because they have a fly speed, can get a bit much. So, all the core races are balanced. Many of the featured races here are playable. Ask your GM if they'll be allowed in the setting, but I'm of the opinion that most of them should be allowed. Once you start getting to uncommon races, again, most of them are decent. Merfolk might take exception to. Strix, they have a fly speed I don't really like. Bevernevolent are overpowered. I don't like that. It all depends on the situation and the setting. So, taking a quick look, we're looking for a charisma bonus and not a penalty to charisma or wisdom. So, gnome is an option. Dwarf, not really. Those three. Halfling, again, an option. But I'm looking for maybe kind of a human descendant. The reason why Asomars make such good clerics is because they got wisdom charisma and they have no penalty. One of the reasons why they're a bit powerful compared to like a tiefling who has 13 race points because they have a penalty. Catfolk, again, not bad. No, they take a penalty to wisdom. Vampire is a vampire descendant. Various means. Ifrits, no, because they take a penalty to wisdom. Wiz minus cha, dex int minus ka, dex wiz minus strength. I will note, if we go to, let's go back here. Now that we've looked through the table, go to races. So Tiefling might be an option, though we're going to have to choose a different type of Tiefling. Asomar is another really good option. So Asomar, and we go down to Tiefling. Asomars are descendants of Celestials in some regard. Good outsiders generally. However, they also could include maybe someone of Ra's court. There's also different sub-races. Sub-races give different bonuses compared to the main one. Usually they come from a different plane or a different variety of outsider as compared to the base. This gives wisdom and charisma. For example, you can con and charisma, strength charisma, so on and so forth. Alternate racial traits allow you to trade out specific bonuses that you have as part of your race in exchange for other things. So, for example, if you have martial weapon proficiency, or you get weapon proficiency as being a half-elf related to the elves, you don't want that, you can trade it out because maybe you're a wizard. Who knows? A bunch of different options there. You can replace dark vision, replace languages, so on and so forth. You can also roll on variant abilities. I do not believe this is balanced, so I usually don't. This is generally a feat to get one of these. Some GMs might let you roll on the table in exchange for your spell, some might not. Because there are straight up just +2 to initiative bonuses during the day, and just straight up +2 to a skill check. Natural speed of 20 feet, +2 to your strength score. It's ridiculous. But, stuff to keep in mind. Cleric, +half damage when using positive energy against undead. Oh! That's something to consider. Now, taking a look at Tiefling, they generally have Dex, Int, and Charisma. However, there's sub-races, Dex and Wiz, Dex, Int, on Wiz, minus Int, that's not bad. Strength, Charisma, Wisdom, Dex, Charisma, minus Int, Div Spawn. Con, oh no, minus Wisdom. No. Okay. So if you wanted to div spawn, hatred and jealousy of malice drives them to spread misery and despair. They're generally neutral evil. However, of course, there is no requirement that you follow those. It is simply a recommendation. If we take a look at div, we can click... No, apparently we can't. Go in. Div, they basically seek to destroy everything. Seek to corrupt and destroy... Oh, no. You can seek the death of all things. The divs strive to ruin and despoil all things created by mortals. Found by corrupt genies. Okay, once again, we're tying back to the genie kind that we had back in the Mummy's Mask Player's Guide. So it could be something to consider. We're likely to encounter div along the way, but no, a div spawn... It's... Well, not being bad, I just, it's not jumping out at me. Plus, Asomar is just a little bit better in terms of the stat bonus they provide. Plus, I like, as we said, we're doing a channeling focus. So plus the half level, it's not very good. Don't get me wrong. Plus half the damage doesn't do much. The extra point is probably worth more. But I like the flavor of it. And that's what matters a little bit more. Focus a little bit more on channeling, so let's do that. So, we then scroll down here. There's non-human ASMRs are an option. We're just going to say a standard human ASMR. Somewhere in the ancestry, sort of angelic being, possibly from Ra's court. Interacted with the pharaoh that the character, not my character, but this character that one of the four we're going to be playing has claimed to be descended from. Quite decent. So, +2 wisdom, +2 to charisma. And we go ahead and show more fields. We'll go ahead and put those in the race bonus. Wisdom and, oh, let's go just 2 here and 2 here. Then we go to race is ASMR. Type is native or outsider native. For the most part, your type is going to be humanoid, with whatever specific race you are. Outsider native does give some additional bonuses. For the purposes of person spells, hold person, charm person, you are not considered a person. I feel bad, I take offense to that. You're not people. Sorry, can't tell you that. What outsider native means is that you are related to the outer planes. You come from somewhere outside of the mortal realm. However, being native to this plane means you are, regardless of your blood and your ancestry, you're tied here. Your soul is tied here. You were born here. You're raised here. You visit elsewhere, cause no problems. But this is considered your home. It means raising you from the dead is easier. It means you can be banished back to the mortal plane. It's just minor bonuses here and there, but just remember, you're not people, but your people work for where it counts. No penalties to their side. They have a normal speed of 30 feet. So we go down here, we go 30. That's the only thing we care about. We have dark vision of 60 feet. For now, we will go ahead and keep that in mind. Dark vision. 60. That means in the dark, you're able to see 60 feet. However, that is, and no further. Beyond that is inky blackness. During dark vision, however, you are colorblind. It is only blacks and whites. That is something that's, I guess, just been a holdover for as long as they can remember. Some people say you are, some people say you aren't. Doesn't particularly matter. I always like the theme of you are colorblind with dark vision. Makes sense in my mind, makes sense thematically. Just is generally cool. Skill. +2 racial bonus on diplomacy and perception checks. We go over to skill checks, and we go down to show more fields. We go to race, we go diplomacy, and we go perception. This likely means we are going to be in charge of both diplomacy and perception, given that we're going to have a reasonably high wisdom score and a probably very high charisma score. So we're expected to do that sort of thing. We go spell-like abilities. We get daylight once per day as a spell-like ability, with cast level equal to your character level. You can get other spell-like abilities based on your various bloodlines. We don't need to worry about that. So if we go to abilities, we go to racial, or we go to traits. Specifically the section of racial traits. Traits and racial traits happen to just be grouped under one, not the end of the world. Make a new option with clicking the little plus sign and go to whatever rule you want, and it'll automatically bring you to the relevant tab. So I happen to know racial traits fit under here. So we'll go spell-like ability. You can also put it under spell-like ability. I just like having all the race stuff under racial traits. So we go daylight once per day. Just make it nice and simple. In this short description, you can call it spell-like ability. It's just kind of a generic inherent thing that your bloodline gives. If we go to description, you can add description here. So whenever you click the roll button, it'll show up in the text. You can do attack and damage, you can do range, all sorts of information. Everybody has their own character sheets customized the way they like to do it. I like my character sheets in Roll20, and even in real life, relatively bare. I don't need all that sort of information. I'm of the opinion, if you need to find that information, you should be able to Google it. Most people have phones. If you don't, you can write them down, you can bring the relevant books with you. But daylight once per day, I as a player know what that means. And since we're going to be doing this online, if you forget or if you need to search Pathfinder Daylight, all the information there. We go here, Pathfinder Daylight. Specifically, it's a 3rd level spell. Lasts 10 minutes per level on object touched. Passing time 1 standard action. We'll get to that verbal somatic, so you wave your arms and saying a song, except for spell lights don't have either of these, so you just think softly and people look at you and go, he's casting magic. Touch an object, it shines a 60-foot bright light, illuminating light, increasing the light level for 60 feet beyond one that. So 60 feet of really bright light, 60 feet of dim light beyond that. Creatures take penalties, and bright light take them within the 60-foot radius. If you cover it, the effects are blocked until the covering is removed. If it's brought into an area of magical darkness, it is temporarily negated. Counters and dispel any darkness spell of equal or lower level, such as darkness and beyond. So, makes sense again, thematic. Ra, god of the sun, it does make sense. The one thing I will note, we're thinking about playing a Blossoming Light Cleric. They automatically get daylight eventually on their channels. So, if we go ahead and give it the old Control F and we go spell dash like, and we scroll all the way down to alternate racials, we can look at a couple of the options to trade out. Again, I don't think variant ASMR abilities are all that balanced. You either get Feast or Famine, they're either really good or completely useless. I don't like rolling on that table. I'm not going to. So, we have Incorruptible. Occasionally you ward further away from evil. You can cast Corruption Resistance against resistance against evil once per day. Use it on yourself. The duration is 1 hour. Well, let's do a quick Google search of what that is. And we will go ahead and go AON, just because we prefer the first-party source, or the official source. Limited protection against damage inflicted based on alignment. Holy Smite. Paladin Smite Evil Attack. 5 points less, increasing as you level up. Doesn't seem great. Let's read the next one. Lost Promise. Aim must use beauty as a celestial gift. Might be persecuted. The forces of evil delight in such perversion of their celestial gifts. Retains as long as you retain either line. Okay, we're obviously not going to be doing that. But continuing to read, you gain the Maw or Claw Tiefling alternate racial feature. It looks like you can get a Bite Attack or a Claw feature if you want to denounce your celestial heritage. Again, could make sense. There's a lot of Tieflings going good, ASMRs going evil. That is a fun thematic thing. We're into numbers NPCs who are one or the other. If we take a look, some things trade out both. I would take a quick look at trade out Skilled and Spell. Like, not necessarily going to do this. I do like Skilled. It makes sense for the character. +2 bonus on cast level checks to overcome spell resistance in Knowledge Planes check. That is very good. Overcoming spell resistance on Knowledge Planes check. So if you're going to be fighting a lot of outsiders, this is a very, very good selection. Crusading Magic. This is related to the Crusades and the World Wound, fighting against the demons who've spawned in there. I don't think it's going to be as important. Spell resistance, of course, it's going to come up. Spell resistance is like armor class for mages. Enemy has a listed spell resistance. You roll your caster level plus a d20, plus additional bonuses you give. Caster level is generally your character level, unless you have multi-class or done something weird. So it's class or character level plus a d20 plus ridiculous bonuses. Those numbers can get high, so this can be quite good. Heavenborn. +2 bonus on Knowledge Plane checks, then cast spell with a good or light descriptor at a caster level +1. Again, don't need the Knowledge Planes. And a good or light descriptor, I feel like I'm going to be casting a fair few of those. But, I already have a light spell, and it already has relevant bonuses. Next up, Immortal Spark. With this racial ability, defy the powers of death. +2 knowledge history checks and saving throws against death effects. Use lesser age resistance once per day as a spell-like ability. Lesser age resistance just helps you overcome the effects of aging. You don't actually stop them, it's just you become more resilient against them. Again, not particularly necessary. So, just a quick look through all that. Other options, you can replace Dark Vision with a halo that illuminates light. Pretty cool. I like Dark Vision. Replaces languages and native outsider. You can become a scion of humanity to become way more human as compared to what you were before. Passes human without a skill. However, don't know the celestial language and you're not a native outsider. Technically, it's a nerf. Some GMs will have you take this just because so you're considered a human. Some players just don't like outsiders. Even if you're a good light outsider, some people just don't understand it. This could be a good option there. This gives you bonuses to linguistics and sense motive and allows you to program extra languages. There's a lot of good stuff for ASMRs, but I think for now, we've looked through the options, we've decided what fits our character the best. It's kind of this general idea, so we'll stick with what we've got. So Celestial Resistance will be the other option. We'll just, again, racial trait. We're going to be skilled. And in parentheses, I'll just say diplomacy, perception. So I know that what that does, just as a general rule of thumb. Next up, dark vision. We've already listed that, but I'll list it here again, just so we know we have dark vision in case we miss it somewhere else or we forget where it's located. Got the spell-like ability. We have celestial resistance. Okay. One thing to note, these sheets do take a little bit of time to update, so you have to give it a moment whenever you do something new. So when I hit plus, I change to racial trait, it takes a moment to switch over to that category. That's why it keeps getting erased when I type. You can click the recalc button to automatically recalculate everything in the sheet. I will note, the more stuff you add, the longer it will take to recalculate, and the more laggy it might be. So if you have a bunch of spells with descriptions and all of this stuff, and you have a bunch of features, and you list out everything, it can make the sheet really laggy. That's one of the reasons I like to keep the sheets nice and simple, nice and easy, because it makes it so I don't have to worry as much, or it doesn't take so long to do things. I also generally like to minimize as many things as possible, because I just go to the specific category. I don't need all this. Some people swear by them. Again, everybody has their sheets differently. Do with what feels comfortable to you. Keep them open, lower them down, whatnot. But Celestial Resistance, you have resistance 5 to acid, 5 to cold, and 5 to electricity. Let's go to our defensive notes. Let's go ahead and do notes here. We can include the saving notes, or not include the saving notes. Generally, a reason to include saving notes is because it allows you to, for your GM, for the purposes of bonuses, say you get like +2 on will saves against mind-affecting effects. That's something I would put in the saving notes so the GM can do the math on their end to tell me if I fail my save or not. Stuff like resistances, resist 5, cold, acid, electricity. And that is going to be on you as the player to remember that. If you take some electricity damage and you forget it, usually you can go, oh wait, I have resistance, let's go back. However, if like 2 or 3 rounds have passed, you're kind of just stuck with what you got. Maybe that was especially effective against you or whatnot. But as long as not too much time has passed, you'll generally get the hang of it. You just, as you play this character more and more, and you spend some time with them, that you'll figure things out further and further. Let's go ahead and collapse all this. We'll get to those eventually. So those are our skills. We've got we know we're an ASMR, we know what we are. We haven't picked a whole lot of the backstory beyond the general outline. We do need to do deity. We're going to be worshipping Ra, and we do, actually, as a Blossoming Light Cleric, to be lawful good. Keep in mind, we are not necessarily the pinnacle of lawfulness and goodness. Aren't the paladin, you must do as I say, or suffer. Hello, welcome to the chat. How are you doing today? But you are generally a good person, and most importantly, a lawful person, as the deity requires. All the rest of this, fill out as you want. So gender is important, languages are important. So we speak Common and Celestial. Now, it is time to do our skills. We go over to here. You'll start accruing a number of tabs. Most of these you can close out if you remember what you're doing. Close out of there. Don't need races anymore. We'll keep the domains open. Rob, don't need that. Don't need that. Okay, so point by. Important stats for us are wisdom and charisma. We want our charisma as high as possible, because that is going to determine our DCs and our number of channels. So when I say as high as possible, I mean I generally like to buy a 6, 17, or 18. We have 20 points to spend. If we go ahead and do a quick summary, you can also, of course, go down in the listings, but it's generally costing 1, 2, this is total cost, by the way, 3, 5, 7, and 10, 13, and 17 out of your total 20 points. It gets very expensive very fast, but if you only need one stat, like you're a wizard, you can just buy an 18 intelligence and call it a day and kind of fiddle with the rest of your stats as you see fit. If you go down in terms of your stats, you get points back. So -1, -2, and then -4. Keeping in mind, going from an 8 to a 7 is an additional modifier penalty. So, looking at this, we need a high wisdom. Let's start with this. We also want at least a 16 wisdom. I prefer a little bit higher, but buying a 16 right now means we never have to really worry about upgrading it, because our racial bonus, if we go to... That's races? Is ASMR in here somewhere? It is not. It's boon races. There we go. ASMR. That allows us to get 18, which means we won't have to increase it much if we ever want to cast high-level spells. Problem is, we're already over our limit, and we still haven't invested anything anywhere else. So, usually an easy way back is if you're a spellcaster, you can get points back on strength. Again, we're still limited. Generally, you are assigned a point buy to start with. Most games assume you start with a 20-point buy. Some GMs will allow you to go 50 or 25. But the total amount will generally be determined by the game you are playing and the person running the game. In this case, I've set a limit of 20 points. You go under that, you shouldn't ever go under that, because you can always generally get a point here or that, or there. But you have to be at the very least, at most, that number. So 7 strength is a little low. You run the risk of encountering dangers with people draining your strength, people encountering problems, poisons and whatnot, and if in case you ever need to climb a rope in an emergency or swim in an emergency, you might be in danger. But again, that's where we're at right now. We know we only get 2+ int skills. That's a problem, because we wanted to have diplomacy plus perception. So are we willing to give one of those up and in case decrease our intelligence score, or are we going to be decreasing one of these scores? I will note at this point, you will, every 4 levels, 4, 8, 12, and so on, get an ability score increase. You can spend it on any point. It's just a +1 bonus. So the reason I've picked a 17 in my charisma, I know it is at a 19. And at 4th level, once we start getting, after a few levels, you will gain the point to round it up to 20. Of course, at 8th level, you'll fall behind again, as compared to someone who had even stats. But it's all a give and take. It's all a give and take. The one thing I'm worried about is my Constitution score here. Because I already am thinking about getting rid of my favorite class bonus in terms of HP, having this at a 10 means my HP is going to be far behind where I would expect to be. I can, of course, bolster that with magic. I can bolster that by just not standing in the front. And also the fact that I'm going to be using channeled energy regularly. Usually it's going to be to harm the undead, or various other evil creatures. But if need be, I can also provide healing. So I don't feel too bad if my charisma or my Constitution score is not really high. But it feels off. So the various options are decrease charisma by 1, decrease wisdom by 1 or 2, or just suck it up. And at this point, I think I'm just going to kind of suck it up. I generally don't like ever, it doesn't matter who you're playing as, having a Constitution score of less than 12, just because hit points are so radically important. But if you have, I want to be able to use skill points. Normally, I would dump this, no questions about this, lower this down to 7, lower this down to 8. The thing about the important thing to note is because I only have 2 skill points, I can't go below. It's minimum 1 skill point from a class. So the difference between 7 and 8 is very minuscule for this character. But because I specifically want this character to have skill points, I don't want to decrease it any further. That's how I would increase my con and dexterity. But you win some, you lose some. So 8, 10, 11, 10, 16, 17. Very specialized in what he does, and should be quite good at it. He or her. Again, still haven't figured out anything beyond that. Dexterity is important for initiative. I will note that now. Initiative being one of the most important stats in the game, because if you go first, you can stop the enemy from acting before you do anything. Much more less important on martials, because especially those who use it melee, because either the enemy comes to you, you get a bunch of attacks, as opposed to you going to them having to charge. But people like archers who can plink down a couple enemies with their full attack before an enemy gets to act, or a wizard who could mind control an enemy or whatnot before the enemy gets to act, and initiative is very important. So, let's go ahead and go to our class, and we also know we have an archetype, the Blossoming Light Cleric. So, first thing I like to do is, if we go to class down here, first we have to indicate a Cleric is our favorite class, and we go Blossoming Light. Mostly that's just for me or the GM taking a quick overview can see that I have some sort of archetype. What you could also do is maybe put the archetype down here and the class here. Just for the sake of convenience, I'm putting it all in one location. So we finished that part at this level. So we go now to our class features. Mark down all the class features you find that are relevant. Luckily for clerics, they are especially easy. Class feature, we go aura. Again, I know what aura does. I don't need to do it, but you go to copy paste here, enter the description, and you're good to go. Type, extraordinary, all that, easy enough to do. Next, we have spells. I don't need to put spells. I have a whole tab for spells. We'll calculate that later. Channel energy. We're going to be channeling positive. Energy. It currently starts at 1d6. And we get this. It is going to be different than normal because we're a Blossoming Light. Quite possibly, yeah. A little bit similar to the Diablo Angel, I guess. To be smiting undead more so than demons, but I guess demons do fight in the realm of what can be smoked by this guy. So 5 plus charisma. Times per day is how I'm going to do that, but we're going to get more later, so it might just be better to list an exact amount of times per day here. You can, of course, do somewhere down here, level basis. It's easy enough. You can determine the amount, you can determine the save. Again, information that I prefer to know in my head. So we're going to start with 9 channels. 9 is a lot of channels, by the way. It's ridiculous. And DC is going to be, again, 10 plus half cleric level, which is 1 plus charisma mod, so it's currently going to be a DC 14. However, we might be changing that later, so keep that in mind. We've got 2 domains. We will get to those in a moment. We got horizons. We got spontaneous casting. Our spontaneous is going to be spontaneous cure, specifically. We may trade any of our currently prepared spells out for a cure spell of the equivalent level. I have played as many positive negatives as I have negative channelers, so it can be somewhat difficult for me to remember. The rest of these bonus languages we don't get because we're not there. Capstones, those are for 20th level. I don't think we'll ever get there. And finally, ASMR, plus half level when using positive energy against undead or alignment channel against evil outsiders. That does not specifically allow the Blossoming Light Cleric's special ability to harm evil worshippers, evil chaotic outsiders, or evil creatures with light sensitivity. Ask your GM. They may allow it. It makes thematic sense for it too. If they say no, don't take the favorite class bonus. If they say yes, take the favorite class bonus on a character like this. Again, entirely up to you. Hit points are very, very nice. In this case, however, I as a GM would allow it, so I will go ahead and take the alternate favorite class. So instead of we go back to our thing here. We go 0 here, and favorite class alt 1 there. Down to 8 HP, which is not a lot. We're basically a wizard in terms of our defensive capabilities and our HP, which makes sense because we are more focused on other things. Now, earlier in the day, we decided upon our domains, Sun Domain and Glory Domain, because we're specifically for the base powers. We go to Raw at this point. Glory could be heroism, honor, Heroism or honor. So we're looking for something that doesn't trade out the first power. So, or the granted power. So we could do heroism. That makes sense. Heroism is a good spell. I know this off the top of my head. Honor. This is the touch of glory power. All of that are quite good. So it's really just up to personal preference. If we go to sun, we look back at our the deity we've chosen. Day and light being options. We're looking for things that don't trade out the sun's blessing. So day trades out the 8th level power, Nimbus of Light. Okay. And light trades out the sun's blessing. So we should not choose light specifically. So now it's an option of just picking and choosing. 8th level, you can emit a Nimbus of Light. This acts as daylight. In addition, undead within the area take damage equal to your cleric level as long as they remain active inside. Again, thematic. We're fighting undead. We're fighting things in the ancient crypts. So that does make sense. Daylight, or the day subdomain. 8th level, you can restore a single creature as if it just completed an 8-hour rest. That sounds really good. Keep reading. It's probably not. Takes 10 minutes. If the use is disrupted, it must be restarted, but it is not lost. At the end of the 10 minutes, a single reeling creature gains hit points as if they had just rested, so they're their character level. And then make new saving throws against effects that require save each day. This is generally diseases, some curses, others, maybe mind control effects, stuff like that. Not suffer any negative effects as if they had failed the saving throw, but success counts against removing the affliction if possible. It does not allow a target to prepare additional spells per day. I mean, uses ability once at 8th level, plus an additional time per day for every 2 levels beyond 8th. So you're trading out, again, another source of light, plus damage to undead for effectively just a little bit of heal, a 10-minute heal. Except it's a 10 minutes once per day. Much more situational ability. So this seems cool and thematic. We're probably going to go this, but we do want to take a quick look at the spells available. And our element. Sorry. Normally we would take a look at the spells available. However, as a Blossoming Light Cleric, somewhere in here, we can close out of that at this point, we do not get our domain spells. Let me make sure that that is true. Blossoming Light still selects domains and retains access to domain powers, but does not gain access to domain spell slots. So, domain spells are entirely irrelevant. We choose exclusively off of powers. So we're going to be Sun Domain. That is domain number 1. The way I like doing this is I do domains, Sun, and we're probably going to do Glory. So I'll just put them both here. And then I make a separate category for each of my powers. Sun's Blessing. Both class features. And things like this, I'm going to go ahead and copy-paste. Again, I could Google it, but these are harder. Specific subdomains aren't always the nicest with Google, so we'll leave it as is. Next off, we move over to Glory. Again, don't get the spells. All we care about is the powers in this specific case. Usually, the spells are the most important thing when choosing domains, beyond, of course, roleplay purposes. In terms of mechanical benefit, however, domain spells matter a lot, because they give you access to spells every day that might not normally be on your spell list. So you can touch a creature, giving it a bonus, as a standard action, giving you a bonus to your cleric level equal to a single charisma-based skill check or charisma ability check, lasting for 1 hour or until you use the roll. That is very, very good, specifically on his self. You can touch yourself counts as a creature. You count as your own ally. So again, very, very good. Divine Presence at 8th level, you emit a 30-foot aura. A number of rounds per day equal to your cleric level. All allies within the aura are treated as if they are under the effects of Sanctuary. Sanctuary means if anybody tries to attack you, they must make a save or they will be unable to attack you until the duration of the spell ends. The DC is, though, relatively low. Better than the base Sanctuary, but still. Don't need to be consecutive. So if you're trying to... ally leaves the area or makes an attack, the effect ends for that ally. Make an attack, the effect ends for everybody. So if you're trying to keep people alive, specifically maybe some NPCs you find along the way, Or if some things have gone really, really bad in your party and you need some time to heal, maybe that could be a situational use of this ability. Let's go ahead and take a look at Heroism Domain. If well, you can emit a 30-foot aura of heroism for a number of rounds per day equal to your cleric level. Using this ability is a swift action. All of the abilities are a standard action, which means in the round you activate the other things, you cannot spellcast. Allows in the area are treated as under the effect of the heroism spell. That is a +2 attack rolls, saving throws, skill checks, ability checks. It's basically a +2 to all your d20 rolls. Very, very powerful. So, quite possibly, we'd be willing to do that. And then, of course, we trade the honor subdomain. With a touch, you can remind a creature of its duties and responsibilities, granting it a new saving throw against an enchantment, charm, or enchantment compulsion effect that is currently affecting it. If it's successful, the enchantment is ended. Power only allows a saving throw. If you fail against such an effect, you may use an immediate action to grant yourself an additional save. Oh. Okay, so yes, you personally, if you fail against an effect, may immediately save. Got it. Once target has made an additional save, this effect has no further effect on that particular enchantment. 3+ wisdom. Got it. All of these seem good. All of them seem, I mean, somewhat niche. A little bit. Heroism is really good. Activating a swift action is awesome. Honor is, mind-affecting enchantments are very, very powerful. Honor makes a little bit of sense. Maybe less so. I will say, I think the heroism one is probably the best. However, I think I'm going to go glory more just because of it makes sense with the RP we've set up for the character. He is this, in some way, indirectly, directly, is related to a pharaoh in ancient times in some way. He worships the gods of the ancient times. He is looking to bring them back to their glory days. Bring his bloodline back, bring the gods back. The glory matters him much more than just being a hero. He wants people to worship his gods. He wants people to acknowledge they know they exist, but be able to help him out, build the temples, worship the gods, and maybe even one day, maybe not take the throne, but be someone important, have his bloodline be recognized for what it once was. So glory makes more sense to heroism in my eyes. So, granted powers. Whenever you channel to harm undead, the DC increases by 2, or have the damage increases by 2. And you have Touch of Glory. So, in class features, Touch of Glory. This one, once again, I will copy paste. And I'll leave, actually, I don't need to do that. Deleting things always takes a while for whatever reason, especially when you just add them. So, I would consider adding this here, but for now, we'll leave it off. I think that is, for the most part, their features. However, we're going to go ahead and go to Blossoming Light. So we switch over. I do like including just the archetype I've selected. So, Blossoming Light. Again, just as a reference so I can recall where it is. Blossoming Light, and then we go to Promise of Faith, Promise of Purity, this alters my various things. Usually, for features like this, I might not include them, but for the sake of viewers, it'll allow them to see. And then, of course, Luminous Font. This is something that I would include a description for because it's not easily memorable. This gives you a bunch of extra options when using your Channel Energy feature, which is something this Cleric is, once again, specialized in. Come on, there we go. So, that is everything for there. The final thing we have to do is skills, spells. Okay, there's a lot more to do. There is, in fact, a lot more to do. Luckily, it should be a little bit quicker since I'm familiar with it. So, we go to class skills. Take this whole list, and we just give anything that says it's a class skill, we give a check mark. Craft. are appraised, craft, diplomacy, heal, knowledge arcana, history, nobility, planes. Arcana, history, nobility, planes, religion, linguistics, profession, sense motive, and spellcraft. Okay, now seems like a good opportunity before we get much further to describe all the skills. Shouldn't take too long. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory. Acrobatics, your ability to tumble, jump, roll out of enemies' attacks. Decently useful based on dex. Appraise allows you to determine the value of an object, which objects valued more, which objects valued less. Looking at a pile of stuff in a moment, determine which one's false, which one you should grab. Comes up occasionally, not all that often. Artistry is a special skill. Bluff, that is your ability to lie and intentionally deceive. Most notably, bluff is used anytime you are intentionally misleading someone. Even if you don't tell a full lie, you roll a bluff check. That will then later be opposed by sense motive. This is also used to feint and to pass along secret messages. Climb is obviously for climbing, ropes, walls, and all that sort of thing. Crafting, this is craft arms, armors, but you have to pick a specific type of crafting. Some of them are useful for feats. A lot of times it's more so just flavor. Crafting mundane objects in Pathfinder takes a lot of time in terms of days past, so it is often not a hugely valuable thing. That's one of the reasons I like background skills, because it makes sense. Diplomacy, this is your ability to speak nicely with people, make someone like you, make someone willing to accept what you say, convince someone of an argument. Stable device, this is interacting with traps and locks, in any way arming them, disarming them, interacting them magical or otherwise can be disabled device. Disguising yourselves, you take situational bonuses depending on if you're closely related to the person you studied them, or if you are radically different. It's much harder to disguise a gargantuan dragon than it is to disguise a different human. Escape artist, this is your ability to get out of a grapple or squeeze through tight spaces. You can also use your CMB to escape out of grapples, so it doesn't come up. A lot of people don't invest in it, only if you're like a rogue and you have excess skill points. Fly is your ability to handle fly checks. I will note you can only invest in fly during if you have some form of ability to fly, whether magically or otherwise. I will also note myself and most other GMs don't actively use the fly rules. I say to tell my players, if you want to invest in fly, the times it will come up is if there's actively something written that involves making a fly check. If you're encountering a storm of some sort, if you're trying to fly through a wind wall, if someone casts magic against you that causes issues. For the most part, assuming you have a decent enough fly speed and a decent enough maneuverability, I'll let you kind of get away with stuff. You can't just fly around in circles, because that might be a bit much. But if you're going in a straight line and just kind of staying there, you're probably fine. Handle animal, that is your ability to influence the attitude, cause to do tricks, and cause to overcome their nature. And of course, basic training of any animals of intelligence score 1 or 2. Intelligence scores 0 are vermin and cannot be trained. Intelligence score of 3 or higher, assuming they are capable of understanding language, will you be used diplomacy. Once you get up to 6, you're starting to get into the intelligence of real people. But once you increase the intelligence score of an animal to 3, they are considered intelligent, quote-unquote. Different rules apply. Heal is the non-magical healing of a person. Doesn't restore hit points without expending different consumables. But this is treating injuries, treating bleeding, identifying cause of death, identifying diseases, that sort of thing. Intimidate is getting someone to do something you want forcefully. Of course, they don't like it, and if you try and influence their attitude, it is only temporary, after which they might hold a grudge. But intimidate can be useful for telling people to piss off, or for causing fear. Fear is a condition you can apply with this sort of effect. Then we have the various knowledge skills. Knowledge Arcana is, of course, knowledge of magic, knowledge of magical things. This also includes the monster lore, identifying magical beasts, dragons, constructs, and probably spattering of others. It's a very common one, and most parties should have it, and especially the wizard. Knowledge Dungeoneering, this is your knowledge of dungeons and aberrations. It's less common, except for identifying aberrations and a few other niche individuals. Knowledge Engineering, it's your knowledge of engineering. It's pretty self-explanatory. It doesn't come up often, but when it does, it's usually for judging structural integrity. Maybe identifying some traps could be useful for. if your GM allows it. Knowledge of geography, this is your knowledge of maps, your knowledge of the surrounding terrain, the surrounding area. Less so geopolitics, maybe some general knowledge of that, but this is mostly physical features as opposed to personal relations between nations. Knowledge history, it's your knowledge of history. Your knowledge of things that came before, your knowledge of studied history, and specifically, this is related to all history. Apparently when people learn knowledge as in Pathfinder, it is very broad. Speaking of broad knowledge local. This is knowledge of local areas, street gangs, specifically whatever this location is, it's local. This also helps you identify humanoid creatures, humans, and all the other various humanoid races. This is your monster lore to identify them. So if you roll to identify a dwarf, you'll know they have dark vision and stone cutting, and so on and so forth. Knowledge nature, again, self-explanatory. Nature, natural things. Sometimes the things are poisonous, sometimes where to go, whatnot, if this is the terrain of a hostile creature, maybe. Also allows you to identify fey creatures, pixies and whatnot, and other common animals and vermin. Nobility is the knowledge of nobles. This is probably the least used knowledge skill, but when it comes up, you have to use it. It's the only one you can use. If you're going to skip one, skip nobility, but makes sense on some characters that I think is important, and usually worth investing a little bit in if you have the spare skill points. Knowledge planes, knowledge of the outer planes, again, self-explanatory, but most importantly, monster lore related to outsiders. Outsiders are going to come up in most every campaign you play, one way or another, so investing in knowledge planes is important. It also helps you in identifying various summoning rituals and things left behind and that sort of thing. Knowledge religion, of course, knowledge of various religions, their practices, their worship books. If you want to give a prayer to a specific deity or honor someone's deity when they are passing, knowledge religion is what you're using. It's also used to identify undead and various undead characteristics. So keep that in mind if you're going to be hunting the undead. Linguistics, every time you take a rank in linguistics, you learn a new language. This can get really quick, or you learn a lot of languages very quickly, so be aware. But beyond that, it allows you to encode messages in writing. So if you're trying to make forgeries or whatnot, it is all using linguistics. And linguistics is opposed by linguistics, so it can be difficult to see through them. Lore is a special skill. We're not going to worry about that. Perception, the single most important skill in all of Pathfinder. Every session will be rolling it. You'll be rolling it. Every session character will be rolling it. You rolled multiple times. You don't have to invest in it, but you should at least have 1 or 2 characters that have it. Not only to identify random encounters if people are trying to ambush you. Admittedly, you might not get in the surprise round, it happens. But you need someone to be able to identify hidden loot. Because otherwise, you'll just be walking past loot, and that sucks. Perform is performing of instruments, more important for bards and the bard branches than anything else. How could you perform with those instruments? Profession, this is your day job. Can be really anything you can think of. Generally, the more useful ones, soldier, barrister comes up occasionally. Librarian can be useful. It's your day job. Be as narrow or as broad as you want it to be. If your GM has suggestions for you, if you want to try and listen to them, that can generally be a good idea. Ride, your ability to ride various things. If you're not invested in it and you start combat, you will suffer. But outside of combat, assuming you are not inept, you can ride without issue. But if you start taking damage in going combat when riding, you need to have invested in that. Sense motive, this is your ability to overcome a bluff check, and your ability to sense something is amiss in a situation. For example, if someone's mind controlled, you can sense motive them. If someone's trying to lie to you, sense motive. Usually it's a good idea to have someone invest in sense motive. Of note, again, you gotta roleplay sense motive well. Even if you think he's lying or he's telling the truth, it could be kind of a toss-up. All a sense motive will tell you, though, is if your character believes their character believes they're telling the truth. A little complicated. What I mean by that is if I say, the sky is blue, you can fail I can roll really high on bluff, or the sky is green, I can roll really high on bluff, and you go, okay, you might believe that, but I know that's not the case. However, I could also say that the assassin was from King Dude Guy II, and you go, okay, he believes he's telling the truth in that regard. I have no reason to distrust him. He could be lying, he could be telling the truth. Regardless, you believe it. And if you're rolling a sense motive, you don't immediately know what he's lying about. I, as a GM, generally like to say it is up to my players if they want to sense motive each other, or that any of the NPCs they have to actively say, I sense motive. I am not going to prompt you, except in specific circumstances, that something is amiss. So you have to say, I want to sense motive, or just roll a sense motive check. And usually if someone starts rolling sense motive, the whole party kind of rolls sense motive. Different people can learn different things, keep that in mind. But it's an important skill if you want to do that. Or you can just rely upon your own intuition. Just keep in mind your character and you both have different intuition. You can be very wise, you can be very dumb. Your character might be different. Sleight of hand, exactly what you said. Grabbing something off someone sneakily, opposed by perception. Hiding something on your person, that sort of thing. Spellcraft, this is identifying spells as they are being cast so you can know what they do. If you identify a spell with spellcraft, usually you are allowed to look up the spell, unless your GM says otherwise. Well, you may not look up the spell, but your GM will tell you what the spell does, because your character should know what the spell does. Stealth. Stealth is your ability to not be spotted. However, the thing to know about stealth is you do actively have to have something that is hiding your person. Stealth is not something you can just Skyrim squat in the middle of open terrain and you'll be stealthy. You have to be hiding behind something, you have to be obscured, you have to be smoky, it has to be dark. Regardless. If you're just hiding in the dark, people with dark vision might just be able to spot you. Also, if you're directly next to someone, that breaks stealth. So you have to be a little bit sneakier. Swim, of course, obvious is swimming. For the most part, you can swim in calm waters without issue, even without investing in it. But if things start going problematic, then you need to invest in it. And finally, use magic device. Using magic device is using magical device. It allows you to use wands and scrolls for things that you're not normally capable of. For example, if a wizard wants to use a cleric scroll or a cleric wand, or sometimes you can use it to bypass requirements on magic items. Some things require a racial requirement or alignment requirement. If you roll fairly high on your UMD check, you are able to bypass those requirements. So, with that all being said, we have 2 skill ranks plus the 2 background skill ranks. I'm going to put 1 rank in linguistics because I want to be able to speak Ancient Osiriani. I actually probably should speak Osiriani before I speak Ancient Osiriani. So we'll speak Osiriani. Eventually we'll pick up the other one. And the other one that I was looking into is possibly Knowledge History or Knowledge Nobility. Of course, I'm not going to be exceptionally good at either of these 2 things. The point is, I want to be capable of them. Background skills, again, more for flavor than anything else. After those 2 ranks in linguistics for Osiriani and Ancient Osiriani, I might go ahead and invest in the other one. So I think we're going to have History be our slightly higher one and Nobility be our slightly lower one. Now, other 2 skill ranks can go in anything. I'm going to go ahead and put mine in Diplomacy, because I want this guy to have the ability to speak nicely. He's also very good at it, comes naturally to him. And the other one is going to be in Perception. I will note, it is not a class skill. The difference between a class skill and a non-class skill in Pathfinder is you just get a +3 bonus to it. That's it. End of story. Having a class skill is nice, not required. Still +7 to Perception without it. However, if you're, it's not a class skill, and you're not very good at it. For example, Dungeoneering would be hard to invest. In my mind, it is hard to invest in. As for how you should spend your skill ranks, I am personally of the opinion that whichever skills you should pick most of your skills to be your primary skills. Whenever you get a level, you invest in that skill. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. For me, that's going to be Diplomacy and probably going to be Perception. 1 or 2 skill ranks might float around a little bit in Climb. If it's class skill, it's not the end of the world. A little bit in Swim, just so you are capable of both of those. Spattering here and there is not bad. But the DCs, as you level up, will continue to rise as well. So unless you have a lot of ranks in your good skills, do not expect to make them with a huge amount of regularity, especially when relating to monster lore skills. Okay. Finally, we have feats and traits. So for feats, if we go to, I know what feat I'm going to do. It's going to be Selective Channel. Let's go ahead and go to Archives of Nethys. When you channel energy, you can choose a number of targets in the area up to your Charisma modifier that are not affected by your channel energy. Otherwise, it normally affects everything within a 30-foot burst. Once again, if you go to Pathfinder Cleric Guide, there'll be a guide, lists a bunch of good feats for you to take, usually color-coded by how good they are with various builds. The Cleric Guide is excellent. This is a generally pretty commonly selected one on specifically clerics who plan to channel energy in combat. Nothing is worse than trying to heal your party and the enemies happen to be in the area of effect. Less important when they're undead or constructs or whatnot, but eventually we're going to be fighting evil cultists, and I don't want to accidentally heal them as well. Or if we're going to be fighting bugs or vermin, which are fairly common low level, channel energy, selective channel is a good choice. Here we do feat. Most notably, each feat does usually have a prerequisite of some sort. This one requires Charisma 13 and Channel Energy class feature. No big deal. Channel, or selective channel. And as for traits, we can go ahead and go to our... The first one is going to be the campaign trait from the Mummy's Mask, again. Available for free download if you want to grab any of the various player's guide for the APs. Beyond that, of course, the APs themselves do cost. However, every once in a while, a humble bundle, if you keep an eye on those, might come up with a bunch of Pathfinder content. Usually, once or twice a year, there's a bunch of content for Pathfinder that goes up. You can usually get a large selection of books and adventures for maybe 15, 20 bucks. Maybe less. So the two that make sense for this character are Blood of the Pharaohs and Devotee of Old Gods. So we can gain bonuses on knowledge, history, and religion, or on will saves and knowledge nobility checks. I said I wanted this guy to be... It is more uncommon in my mind to have the Blood of the Pharaoh as compared to worshipping an old god. Old gods are worshipped everywhere. So I think Blood of the Pharaoh is going to be the trait I select. So we go specifically traits here. Traits and traits are going to overlap in the same tab. We're going to do Blood of the Pharaoh. So, we gain a +1 bonus on our will saves. Go ahead and go trait. Not hugely important again, because we're already very good in will saves, but I guess even better now. And +1 knowledge on knowledge nobility checks, and it's always a class skill. It is already a class skill for us, so not the end of the world. We get a +1 trait bonus here. Which means, in my eyes, we should probably invest in knowledge nobility before we invest in knowledge history. Again, makes sense based on the character. A little less optimal. Who cares? Don't need to be optimal. Now, as for our second trait, there are a handful of good ones that I would recommend. There is always Reactionary. Reactionary is a combat trait that gives you +2 bonus to initiative. That is quite possibly the single best trait in the game. There are some racial traits which give similar, but it's tough to go beyond that. However, in my personal opinion, Reactionary and initiative boosting traits, kinda lame. Everybody picks them. I don't want to do it. Hello, welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a good day. So, instead of Reactionary, off the top of my head, again, the guides would have various options. There are various traits that increase... There's also a guide to traits that increase... pick any skill in the game. There's a trait that gives you a +1 bonus to it and makes it a class skill. Eyes and Ears of the City is one that I know of off the top of my head. However, that does require worshipping a specific deity, which we are not worshipping. So for now, I'm just going to say, because I don't want to go searching through the depths of everything, Perception +1 class. Just so that I know, I as a player know, and I can go through that and do this information later. But for the most part, it's going to be not that big a deal. So, take our Perception, put a +1 there, make it a class skill. That means we are exceptional at Perception. We are as good as someone who is fully invested in it at this point. Similar to our Diplomacy. I mean, we're beyond that, because normally a max you can get a +1 without any bonuses is a 9. So yes, we are above average. Nothing escapes our eagle eyes. Makes sense, I guess, because we're a falcon. Now, finally, the most quote-unquote difficult part is going to be spellcasting. First, let's go ahead and go to our character. Our class is the first class we have. This is going to be from over here. Class 1, it just keys in which class is important. Concentration check, we identify which is our ability score. So our ability score is Wisdom, which is a modifier of 4, our class level is 1. So concentration checks, these are all going to be useful later. We are a prepared spellcaster. We have to identify the number of spells we get per day. This is all available on this handy dandy sheet. So we get 3 plus 1 spell per day, plus 1 domain spell. All these plus 1s are all domain stuff. We don't get domain spells. So we get 3 0th level and 1 1st level spell. That'll of course be augmented by our wisdom score. For example, if you look on this column to the right, we have a wisdom score of +1, or our wisdom score is high enough that we get 1 additional 1st level spell per day. So we get a total of 2 spells. That is available if you just Google Pathfinder ability scores, and there's a big table for it, or you can do it here online. So we now go to the Cleric spell list. Not particularly well organized. So each of these has various utility. Of course, create water is going to be the first one on our list. We are going to be living in a desert. Water is going to be the most important resource we have at our disposal. Let's go ahead and make sure we're capable of doing that. Next up, I mean, this is gives you a short description of what all the spells do. Off the top of my head, good spells. Create water gives you water. Detect magic allows you to detect magical things. Usually, if you're detecting magic, spellcraft is required to identify what the magic items do. We don't have spellcraft. Lower my priority list. Enhanced diplomacy gives you a +2 to diplomacy or intimidate to a single subject. However, that was made during the 3-5 hour. And most importantly, it's a standard action. It only lasts a minute. Most people don't like when you cast spells in the middle of combat, or in the middle of a nice civilized conversation, unless you ask them nicely. So, not always the most useful. Guidance. Another one of the best spells in the game. Cast Guidance, and they get for 1 minute or until used, they get a +1 bonus on their next attack roll, skill rolls. Very useful. Whenever you are out of combat, and one of your party members or you are going to do a thing, you just say Guidance. Assuming you have the time and nothing is impeding you, it's perfect. Light, if you can't see in the dark. Mending allows you to make minor repairs on non-magical things. Again, situationally good. Read magic, automatically identify scrolls, purify food and drink. If it comes up regularly, I don't really see much of a point. Spark, Stabilize is good in the fact that it is a close range spell. So it is a ranged ability to not let your allies die. Just for lack of other spectacular options, I will take it. It also makes thematic sense with my good aligned character that I have been building. Let's spell stabilize, right? Stabilize. I'll do it eventually. Stay. E-I-L-I-Z. Perfect. Now, once again, state. Look at all these spells for clerics. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. I know. There's maybe 6 or 7 of them that you'll prepare regularly, and there's maybe 10 to 15 that you'll see with any frequency. So, some good ones. Best case scenario, go to the guides. They'll give you a list. Bless is a generally good one. I like having that one on my spell list. That is just a +1 to hit, and a bonus on saves against fear. Doesn't scale very well, but it affects all your allies. It affects you at low level. That extra +1 to hit means a lot. So I will probably cast that with some regularity. Command is another option. However, I prefer the much more murderous command that we'll see later. Cure Light Wounds is not important for me, because I spontaneously convert any of my spells into cure spells. Comprehend languages allows you to understand all languages. Could be important if you don't have someone who's invested a lot in linguistics or has a very high intelligence score. So once again, any ranks you have in intelligence gives you for every modifier you have in intelligence, positive, you learn an additional language. So you combine that with ranks in linguistics, and you can quickly surpass 20 or 30 languages, at which point it's very annoying. That's both the player and GM. Various detect spells I don't regularly cast unless I have a reason to. Divine Favor, not so useful on this character, but gives you bonuses on hit and damage for a minute. Continuing to go down. Forbid Actions, tell him not to do something, could be decent. Hide from Undead occasionally comes up if you know you're going to be walking through a bunch of undead. Lucky Number. Once you start getting up to higher levels and your first level spells are less useful, Lucky Number is a good one. You poke a creature and you give it a d20. At any point during the day, they can, when they roll that result, they can either re-roll it or get a +2 on the results. Basically, they roll a die, and if it's low, they're happy, and if it's high, they're like, okay, sure, whatever. Stuff to do with your high-level stuff. Liberating Command is another one I like to put on my spell list. This is another spell less useful early on, but it will come up later down the line. Liberating Command is you look at someone as an immediate action, so outside of your normal turn, you can do this. You say, jump out of that guy's glove, or someone try to grab you, no thank you. And they try and escape, they get a big bonus based on your caster level. It can be very, very good in the mid-levels before everybody is magically protected against grapple. And then we got Lucky Number. This is kind of how I do Cleric spell lists. Because Wizard spell lists, I only include the spells I know. But Cleric spell lists, any spell that I'm likely to cast, I like putting on my list. Obscuring Mist gives you a big fog surrounding you if you want to run away, or you're trying to getting shot a bunch by ranged characters. Murderous Command is one of the single greatest it's one of the best first level spells. You point at someone, if they fail a save, they must attack their nearest ally to the best of their ability on their next turn. Most enemies do not use this spell, because this is an incredibly good spell. So, if you're playing with a more experienced party, maybe give them a little bit of Murderous Command. But if there's two guys, and not only does it stop them from attacking you for a round, but it also, in theory, does damage to their ally for a round. Very, very powerful spell. Protection from good, protection from evil, the various protection from spells. Gives you a bunch of bonus when dealing with that specific enemy. Protection from evil is the one I'm going to be doing. Doesn't come... The most important thing that this spell does later down the line, it gives you a little bit bonus to AC and resistance that'll eventually be surpassed by magic items. But if you're under a hostile mind-affecting effect by a creature of that alignment, oftentimes it can either suppress or make you immune to them. Remove sickness, restore corpse, you occasionally see Sanctuary I talked about before. Shield of Faith is another one. A scaling deflection bonus. Again, I only get 2 spells per day. This is just a list, so I never have to come back and do this again. This just makes your AC a little bit higher. Summon monster you can do if you want to be a summoning character. This guy is very much not a summoning character. And did I miss anything? I don't think I did. Those are just kind of off the top of my head. Best first level spells. As for what I'm going to be preparing today, I'm going to be preparing 1 Murderous Command and 1 Bless. Is that good? Or maybe 2 Bless? I'm going to be preparing 2 Blesses. Hello, welcome to the chat. Hope you're doing well today. No, not necessarily getting ready to play an MM. I'm just going to be... I'm going to be kind of GM playing. I'm going to be solo playing through it. So, for my stream, I'm getting a party of 4 together, and we're going to loosely go through it. Running a number of the combats, doing a little bit of roleplay based on how they would be. But at this point, it's just me. Somebody will be playing both part of GM and players. Teaching players how to play Pathfinder, anybody that stops by. Answer any questions that come up and come along. And so forth. For now, though, we've completed the first of our 4 characters and took a little while. This is 1st edition Pathfinder. I am not overly familiar with Pathfinder 2nd edition, but I do love Pathfinder 1st edition. Okay, actually, one thing I will do... Area. Syrian. Okay. The rest of this information can be filled out at a later time, once I've got a more thorough idea of what the full party is going to be. But for the first party member, I'm reasonably happy. I'm not happy with all of the stats. Skills, I mean, the rest of it I like, but having to invest in 2 stats is never a fun thing. One thing, another further bit of advice I will give. There are 2 types of characters. It's called sad characters and mad characters. And you very much want to be sad, which is first time for everything. A sad character is a single ability score dependent. These are people like wizards. They use their intelligence for basically everything they do, and the rest of their stats are, you know, nice to have wisdom, nice to have dex, nice to have constitution and all that, but it's not required for them to function as a character. Mad characters are multi-ability score dependent characters. Those are characters that are going to require a lot of different stats. So these are people like paladins that require strength to hit, dex for their AC in initiative, they require con so they have more hit points, they require charisma to cast their spells and get bonuses. So because of that, they have to spread their ability scores throughout a number of different stats. So they're not necessarily going to be as high at any one point. Or, like a lot of paladins end up doing, they have a lot of dump stats. They lower their intelligence, they lower their wisdom, so their other stats can be decent in comparison. I try to minimize the number of dump stats I have, depending on the number of games. For example, this character, only 1 stat below a 10. I'll try and keep it minimal, because a lot of people find min-maxing obtuse. There's a degree of min-maxing, I believe, that should go into a lot of different characters. For example, you're not just going to throw charisma out the window because I'm a channeling cleric, I know it's important. But you don't have to get the absolute best feature from every single section. Pathfinder is never designed to be... Most every Pathfinder scenario is never designed to be, you have to be the best, you have to be the strongest. And if it is, it will say so. There'll be a hardcore mode that is optional. It'll specifically say, this is a deadly scenario, play at your own peril. Admittedly, every once in a while, there'll be a thing that the writers just didn't account for, or something that is too difficult for the average player base. I've encountered it before, where some assassins sneak in during the night, when you're very low level, and you are unprepared for them. It happens. But, for the most part, the balance of these games is reasonably good, so an average party, some new, some old, will all have an enjoyable experience. Thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Feel free to follow links down below if you want to see some of my content, and I will see you all next time.